Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN. Whether you've been following this channel for a long time, or you've only heard a few of my creepy stories and mysteries, you've probably realised the value of staying safe and secure, even while surfing the web. With most of us spending multiple hours each day online, myself included, it's safe to say the internet knows a lot about us. Unfortunately, these days, there are plenty of people out there trying to get their hands on that data of yours. One of the best ways to protect yourself is by using a VPN. That's where Nord comes in. NordVPN is extremely reliable and convenient, with super fast servers and 24/7 customer support. Want to stay hidden online? Nord's got your back with double data encryption for increased anonymity. Want more peace of mind? Their VPN protects your communications and personal data, and makes hacking into your devices virtually impossible. With NordVPN, your information will always be protected, no matter which country you're in. Right now they've got a special offer on. Head on over to nordvpn.com/LazyLegion, or use coupon code LazyLegion, and you'll make a huge 70% saving. Sign up for their 3-year plan, and they'll even throw an extra month in for free. Find that unique URL in the description or comment section, and take advantage of that spine-chilling deal. This is the last ever photo taken of Engler Hoagland, who went missing on her way home from football practice. It was April 5th, 2008, and the setting? It's Stjärnsund, Sweden. A local resident was out testing his new digital camera, taking random pictures of anything and everything in the area, getting a feel for how it worked. While doing so, he snapped this image of Engler. He had no idea he had just inadvertently taken the last ever photograph of her alive. When Engler didn't return home after practice that day, her mother called her cell phone. Despite numerous tries to get through to her, her daughter didn't answer. That was completely unlike her. Needless to say, she went out looking for Engler, and in doing so, made a chilling discovery. She found Engler's bike, the same one she was riding in this photograph, abandoned in the woods. There was no other trace of her anywhere. Her mother notified the authorities immediately. This case got a lot of media attention, not only in Sweden, but across all of Scandinavia. Search parties were formed to look for Engler, and areas that were even remotely close to where she'd vanished were scoured with a fine-tooth comb. Everybody hoped and prayed that this was just a case of a child going on an adventure, getting lost in the forest, and that she'd soon be found safe and well. But as the hours rolled into days, that hope began to dwindle. When the man who had been snapping photos that fateful day realised that he had actually taken Engler's picture just before she disappeared, he came forward with his camera. On it, investigators found another photo that was of extreme interest. An image captured moments before this one of Engler. It was a picture of a red Saab 900. It almost appeared to be following the girl. This was the lead the investigators had been looking for. By tracing the license plates, they were able to track down the car's owner, Anders Eklund, a 42-year-old truck driver. When questioned, he immediately confessed to killing Engler, and even led the authorities to where he'd hidden her remains. Despite confessing to taking Engler's life, and despite the miraculously captured photograph of him following her as she rode home, Eklund claimed that his actions that day had merely been a coincidence, and that they weren't premeditated. He said that he had never met the youngster before, and when he stepped out of his car to go and talk to her, she became frightened and kicked him in the shin. Angered, he advanced on her, at which point Engler began screaming. Worried what people might think, he strangled Engler in order to silence her, and dragged her lifeless body into the woods. It was all just a big misunderstanding, according to him. Yeah, okay bud, that sounds like a perfectly innocent and normal alibi. Yeah, right. Eklund's DNA was tested, and the results were shocking. 8 years prior to this, a 31-year-old woman named Pernilla Hellgren had been strangled until all of the life was snuffed out of her. Her slayer then had his way with her, leaving behind vital evidence as a result. The DNA traces at the scene matched with Eklund's DNA perfectly. When asked about this, he again confessed, but again insisted that he hadn't meant to hurt that woman either. It was all just another misunderstanding. Anders Eklund was sentenced to life in prison for his heinous actions and is currently a suspect for other cases still under investigation. At first glance, this looks like a pretty ordinary selfie. Just 3 young girls smiling, enjoying their time together, their hair blowing in the wind. Thing is, that light on the right-hand side of the screen belies a hidden darkness. It's actually the headlight of an oncoming train, which hit them moments later. The driver blared his horn, unable to stop the locomotive. Trains can take up to a mile to stop once the brakes are hit. Sadly, the girls didn't even flinch, completely in their own world, just having fun. Seconds later, they disappeared under the train, their lives extinguished, and a whole lot of grief ignited for both their families and the driver of the train. Their names were Essarika and Kelsey and Savannah Webster. This image goes to show the importance of paying attention to your surroundings. You never know what's coming around the corner. The year was 1961. While going about their business, the crew of the Captain Theo noticed something floating in the sea beside their ship. It was a disintegrating cork float. Inside it was 11-year-old Terry Jo Duperrault. She had been drifting in the water for 4 days without food, water, or protection from the elements, and was near the point of death. By some miracle, they crossed paths with her and were able to save her life. How Terry Jo came to be in this predicament is harrowing to say the least. Terry Jo and her entire family had been aboard another ship called Bluebell, a small sailing ketch that was taking the Duperraults from Green Bay, Wisconsin to the Bahamas. The ship was being skippered by Julian Harvey, who also brought his 6th wife along for the journey, but it couldn't have been a happy marriage, because, while en route, Harvey drowned his wife in the ocean. After being discovered by Terry Jo's father, Harvey took a large knife and butchered him, along with Mrs. Duperrault and Terry Jo's 2 siblings, leaving her as the only survivor on board. Rather than end her life too, Harvey instead sabotaged his ship, abandoning it in his dinghy and leaving Terry Jo to drown in the sea. Just before the boat sank, the young girl was able to untie the float and launch herself into the ocean. During those 4 long days at sea, her float began to fall to pieces, forcing her to balance on the side of it with her legs in the water. As such, parrotfish kept biting her feet. It's hard to imagine what Terry Jo must have gone through. Losing your whole family in one fell swoop is horrifying enough, but to then drift alone for 4 days in the ocean, just awaiting to either drown, perish from thirst or sun exposure, or to be picked apart by sea creatures, it doesn't bear thinking about. And all of this at the age of 11. Harvey himself had been rescued by another ship the day after the incident. In the dinghy with him was the lifeless body of Terry Jo's younger sister. He claimed that a freak accident had destroyed their ship, and that although he had tried to save the youngster's life, he was unable to. When he later learned that Terry Jo had survived and been rescued, Harvey checked himself into a motel under a fake name and ended his own life with a razor blade. Had Terry Jo not been rescued, he'd likely have gotten away with everything. Harvey probably wanted his wife out of the picture to get his hands on some insurance money. One of his previous marriages ended after his wife perished in a car crash. He was driving the vehicle at the time, and he netted himself a healthy sum. 2 of his past boats had also sunk under mysterious circumstances, yielding him even more money. What's unknown about this case is why he left Terry Jo alive on board the vessel. Many years later, in an interview, she herself said, "I think he probably thought I'd go down with the ship." What you're looking at on screen is basketballer Mark Jackson's official 1989 to 1990 trading card. Until recently, this card was just like any other from that period. In August 2018, however, a keen-eyed collector spotted something unusual in this picture. behind Jackson, sitting courtside, are the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric. This photo was taken after they had both killed their parents for insurance money in their Beverly Hills mansion. In August of '89, the two men, 21 and 18 at the time, burst into their family living room with a pair of shotguns and fired 15 rounds into the back of their mother and father while they watched TV, completely obliterating them. The brothers then went to a movie theatre, dumping their equipment and changing their clothes on the way, and afterwards drove home and pretended to discover their parents' lifeless bodies. This image was taken before the authorities caught the two men, who were both going about their lives as if they'd done nothing wrong. In fact, they were living extremely lavishly now that their parents were out of the picture. When the insurance money came through, they both went on a spending spree, blowing $1 million in 6 months on Rolexes, cars, tennis lessons, parties, and, relevant to this video, courtside tickets to basketball games. For nearly 30 years, the two sociopaths had been hiding in the background of an official piece of NBA merchandise, completely unnoticed. Little did anyone realize that the image captured the two brothers, living it up on money they'd made from taking their parents' lives. Makes you wonder what else is hiding in the background of other photos that just hasn't been noticed yet. Shortly after this photo was taken, the brothers were apprehended. The spoiled siblings had huge egos and thought that they could get away with anything, even parenticide. Thankfully, that turned out not to be the case, and they both received full life sentences to be served in different jails. They've both since gotten married while behind bars. Lyle twice. Before this discovery, these Mark Jackson cards were going for about 10 cents each. Now they're going for a lot more. The photo on screen is of Sayi Segawa, also known as Pang, a notorious celebrity in Japan. At only 4'9", he's small in stature, but not in personality. His notoriety was at its peak between 1986 and 1997, during which time he constantly appeared on Japanese television as a guest speaker and commentator. He appeared in horror movies and wrote best-selling cookery books. Cookery books. Yeah. Notice how in this photo he's eating a dish. Well, food was his claim to fame. But not just any food. Segawa was a real-life cannibal. In 1981, while studying in Paris, France, he invited his classmate, Renee Harteveld, a 25-year-old Dutch woman, to translate poetry together for an upcoming assignment. She agreed. While reading a poem at a desk in his apartment, Segawa walked up behind her and shot her in the back of the neck with a hunting rifle. He then had his way with her remains. His ultimate plan, though, was to eat her. Segawa considered himself short, weak, and ugly. Renee, on the other hand, was tall and beautiful, full of life. He believed that by consuming her, he could absorb her energy. He tried to bite into her flesh raw, but found it to be too difficult and unpalatable. So, he calmly walked to a local store, purchased a butcher's blade, and began slicing off parts of Renee's body to cook. He ate most of her face and chest, taking photos of her at each stage of his dining experience. When he was finally sated, he stored other parts of her in his refrigerator for later, placed the rest of her into 2 suitcases, and tried to dump them in a lake. Luckily, he was caught red-handed while trying to do so, and the officers found parts of Renee inside the 2 cases he was carrying. Luckily for Segawa, and unluckily for the rest of us, his parents were extremely rich. His father hired a top lawyer for him, and he was able to escape jail time after being declared legally insane. He was held in a French hospital, but when a Japanese author published a story about him, people in the land of the rising sun became morbidly curious about his story. He gained a sort of macabre celebrity status, which no doubt contributed to the French authorities' decision to deport him back to Japan, where he was quickly determined to be sane after all. Now, with no charges against him, Segawa checked himself out of hospital immediately, and remains a free man to this day, having served no time in prison whatsoever. The photo of Segawa you're looking at now was featured on the cover of a well-known Japanese magazine, Spa. It featured an article in which he reviewed a restaurant. Considering what he was famous for, that's in bad taste. Segawa also went on to write a best-selling book about his killing of Renee. Certainly not a book for the faint of heart, as it goes into explicit detail about what he did. It's strange and disappointing to realize that someone like Segawa could not only escape justice, but also go on to become famous and profit from his despicable actions. Now, given the context, this image of him eating with a cocky, dead-eyed stare becomes something truly haunting. He got away with it all, and he loves it. You'll be happy to know that things have changed. Nowadays, Segawa is detested by the younger generations and has fallen out of the limelight. He struggles to find employment. Sayi Segawa was born in Kobe, which is currently the city where I live. Yeah, internationally, I'm glad we're famous for our beef, and not for this guy. This image is of Stephen Webber Jr. proposing to his girlfriend while freediving at the Manta Resort on Pemba Island, Tanzania. It was captured moments before his underwater marriage proposal turned tragic. The couple were staying in a room that was completely submerged in water, with glass windows so you could see out into the ocean all around you. Stephen dived into the water, swam down to the glass window, and showed a note to his girlfriend, Kenisha, who was watching and filming him from the other side of the glass. His note read, "I can't hold my breath long enough to tell you everything I love about you, but everything I love about you, I love more every day." On the back, it said, "Will you please be my wife? Marry me?" He then pulled out a ring, and after a few seconds, swam up for air. Unfortunately, Stephen drowned before he could reach the surface. His girlfriend wrote on her Facebook page, "You never emerged from those depths, so you never got to hear my answer. Yes, yes, 1,000,000 times yes, I will marry you." Take a look at this seemingly normal photograph. Just looks like a picture of your typical dorky uncle alongside his daughter, right? Well, the man in this photo is actually Dennis Rader, better known as the BTK Killer. Over the span of 17 years, he took the lives of 10 people in the Wichita, Kansas metro area, including an entire family. He used everything from ropes and plastic bags to belts and pantyhose to strangle his victims. What made his actions even more harrowing, however, was that he liked to tie up the remains of those that he had slayed and photograph them in strange, contorted positions. He did so because it gave him satisfaction. That was his motivation. This photo, taken during his daughter's graduation, was captured less than 2 years before his arrest. Now, Dennis Rader was obviously a deplorable human being, and even in his day-to-day life, he did some pretty despicable things. He became a dog catcher in Park City. People noted how he took special joy in bullying single women. One neighbor even complained that he had killed her dog for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Still, for the most part, he managed to fit in well enough to avoid being detected by the authorities for 17 long years. He'd send investigators letters, taunting them for their inability to find him, along with little dolls with tied-up hands and feet, symbolizing those he had taken the lives of. But for all his boldness, Rader had one major weakness. He was completely tech illiterate. So, one day, he sent one of his infamous letters to the cops, asking if they'd be able to trace him if he sent them a floppy disk. They of course said they wouldn't be able to, and, unbelievably, he actually sent them one. The authorities couldn't believe their luck. On the floppy disk, investigators found some metadata on a deleted document. It said, "Last modified by Dennis." From this, they were able to narrow down the suspects until it was obvious who the perp was. But that's where this photo comes into play. Despite being able to link the floppy disk to Dennis Rader, this still wasn't considered enough to bring him in. They needed a DNA sample. His daughter, pictured in this photo, had just graduated from Kansas State University's medical center. While there, she had to have a pap smear done. The authorities got a court order to take the smear and test the DNA. From that, they established a familial link to the DNA found at the crime scenes. And that's what brought Dennis Rader down. Rader was very upset that the police had lied to him about the disc being safe to send. "I need to ask you," he said to the lead detective on the case, "how come you lied to me?" The detective simply answered, "Because I was trying to catch you." When his house was searched after his capture, the cops came across a treasure trove of pictorial evidence. Some were of BTK's victims, but others were of himself, masked and dressed up in women's clothes. He had taken these pictures to reenact his crimes. These images helped to give us an insight into his mind at the time he was active. Unsettling stuff, to say the least. This is a photo of Pavel Cashin, a Russian freerunner. The image, taken on the 2nd of July 2013, captures his final stunt on the edge of a 16-story high building in St. Petersburg. A split second after this photo was taken, Pavel made a fatal mistake when he failed to land his backflip correctly. He lost his footing and plummeted over the side of the building. He was 20 years old. His parents, who saw this final image of their son, issued a statement saying they hope this photo will deter other daredevils from risky jumps. Not exactly one photo for this entry, but a whole set. I know I'm cheating a little, but stay with me. Regular viewers of this channel might remember a video I made a while back. 5 video clips with disturbing backstories. In it, I talked about the dating game killer, Rodney Alcala, a man who appeared on a TV dating show back in the 70s, who later turned out to be a serial murderer. I know lots of you might have missed that episode, seeing how he got hit by the yellow button of demonetization. So for those of you who didn't tune in, the short story is that between 1968 and 1979, Alcala claimed the lives of at least 8 people across various states in the US, though his exact number of victims remains unclear, and could be as many as 130. Alcala's methods were simple but effective. He'd pretend to be a professional photographer and offer his potential victims the opportunity for a private, high-quality photo shoot. Lured in by his good looks and charm, many people, mostly women, accepted his proposal. Once he'd gained their trust by taking a few snaps of them in public, he'd invite them to join him in a more private setting. When he had them alone and to himself, that's when Alcala would not only take their final pictures, but their lives as well. When he was finally apprehended, investigators found Alcala's camera, along with multiple photo albums. There were thousands of pictures of hundreds of different people, all of them potential victims. As such, it remains unknown just how many lives Alcala claimed during his 11-year rampage. Over the years, the authorities have been able to track down some of the individuals from the photos, but many of them remain unaccounted for. Despite there being a public request for people from the photos to come forward, the identities and well-being of many of the photographed people remain unknown to this day. Despite their innocent appearance, any of these photos could be of people he slayed moments later. Do you recognize anyone in these images? If so, you might hold the answer to a small part of a very large, very sinister mystery. This image shows the crew of the ill-fated Apollo 1 mission, huddled around a model of their command module, hands clasped in prayer. The photo was taken during a promo shoot for their upcoming mission, but the story behind this particular image is both dark and tragic in equal measure. You see, this picture wasn't released along with the other promotional material. Of course, NASA didn't want people thinking that their astronauts didn't have complete faith in their ship, nor did they want people to think that the mission even had a chance of failing, but the crew knew. Before this picture was taken, they'd expressed their concerns about their spaceship's problems, specifically about the amount of flammable material in the cabin. Unfortunately, their points fell on deaf ears, so Command Pilot Gus Grissom, Senior Pilot Ed White, and Pilot Roger B. Chaffee, the three-man crew, presented this parody image to ASPO manager Joseph Shea, along with the message, "It isn't that we don't trust you, Joe, but this time we've decided to go over your head." Finding the image humorous, Shea gave the order to remove the flammable material from the cabin, but didn't supervise the removal himself. As such, the flammable material remained inside. Soon after this photo was taken, during a test in which the 3 crew members were inside the command module, an electrical fire broke out. Over the intercom, one of the crew could be heard shouting, "Hey, we got a fire in the cockpit!" Because the test had been labelled as low risk, emergency preparedness was very poor. All the engineers could do was watch their monitors as the module filled with smoke. The plug door hatch couldn't be opened due to the pressure from inside the module, and soon the whole of the inside was engulfed in flames. "We got a bad fire, we're burning up!" screamed another of the crew over the intercom. Then, screaming. Then, silence. The flames spread so rapidly, they never stood a chance. Their concerns had been valid all along, and sadly, the order to remove the flammable material had gotten lost along the way. Though intended to be a tongue-in-cheek jab at their boss, this image now stands as a testimony to 3 brave men who undertook extreme risks in the name of progress. It's thanks to their sacrifice that the Apollo mission was ultimately a success. Shortly before his untimely end, Command Pilot Grissom told a reporter, "If we die, we want people to accept it. We hope that if anything happens to us, it will not delay the program. The conquest of space is worth the risk of life." Hey guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's video. It's getting harder and harder to find pictures that haven't been covered like a million times by other channels, so I hope you didn't know too many of these already. And if you did enjoy the video, be sure to smash that like button, or I'll smash you. Before we end the video today, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon, and to all of the people who've become members of my channel, especially my biggest supporters. Alicia L, Matthew J. Bauer, Abigail Grunewald, Crawford K McDonald, Monica Mendoza, Charles Wilson, Tom King, Alex Greensall, Philip Westra, ProCupidineNata, Gina Valera, AnimeWimp, Sarah Ramirez, Carl Martin, Sloane Crawford, Nadine, Darius Saffaie, Connor Louthan, Hamish, Sieg, Carl, Infamous-senpapi, Mystic the Manakete, Alba Medrano, Silas Gheist, Azrael Warakai, and Miss Ayami Stroud. Well, that about wraps things up for this one, guys. Keep your eyes peeled for the next video. And until then, you all stay spooky. And remember, the best things happen in the dark.